What's up?
Jeremy Schmierer,
That's me.
thanks a lot for doing this. I
Nope.
really appreciate it.
No problem.
You are the owner of Dark Alliance Customs.
Correct.
What is that exactly?
Man, I mean, whatever you have is what I'll customize. I mean, it started off just doing like basic slides and stuff, and then it's kind of molded into then complete guns, and then moved into knives and different weaponry, and then that kind of moved into the cigar world, doing Zippos and cigar cutters, and that turned into doing car parts and motorcycle parts, and it just kind of now I basically tell people if it's metal, I'll cut it.
That's cool. How did you get in the business of customizing firearms and everything that you just outlined there?
I mean, I started in this just because I kind of got sick of paying other people to do work I knew I could do better. I mean, this is 13, 14 years ago now, forever ago. And this is back when like you had a window cut on top of your Glock and you're like, oh shit, that's the dopest thing in the world. Like that's the best. Like everyone thinking like you got an amazing custom piece. Like, no, dude, it took 2 seconds to cut a square out of the hole, So I worked at a pro front wheel drive race team where we were always building cars and traveling a bunch. So I always kind of designed the shirts and the car makeout and stuff like that on it. So kind of help with design wise. So then we started doing our guns and stuff and send those out, and we get them back. And I'm like, dude, I just put it on the mill and could just cut it out. Why we spending money on this crap? So just started doing buddy stuff, really, And then somebody, I don't even remember who, said, oh, you should put that on Instagram. So I put it on Instagram, and within like no time, someone hit me up and asked me how much, and I don't know, like $50. And I'm like, all right, deal. I'm like, fuck. I should have said like 70. Like he said yes way too quick. So I'm like, all right, well, let's do that, and started putting those out, and that just kind of rolled into more and more, and then just there wasn't enough nights and weekends, so then just kind of split off and did my own thing.
How do you balance the functionality with artistic design? Is that something you think about why you do it, or are these just pieces of art?
I always tell people that I get a question a lot, like, oh man, these are wall hangers. I would never use this thing that, this is going to be a safe queen, or I'm hanging on the wall as art. I'm like, dude, as much as I appreciate the compliment, it's like, it's a tool. At the end of the day, it's a tool. Every gun I build has to be able to work. Any gun, no matter how fancy, and you be some crazy gold-plated, whatever, and if it still doesn't work, my name's not going to be on it. Like, it's just, unless it's for, specific use for like a movie, proper video shoot, something like that. If it's actually going home to like someone's house, still a tool, still should work. So no matter, that kind of always plays into, obviously, some artwork might not be, oh, that's functional because of this reason. No, might not have no function at all, but it still will function, So
What advancements in like 3D printing has helped you with what you do in your customization?
So I don't do a lot with 3D printing. There are the company I use for my LaserWorks Trotec. They're in my opinion the best in the business. They're the reason I'm able to get the details that I'm able to get. I mean, if their lace wasn't able to keep up with what I was doing, then I'd be in a mess. And they're actually in the middle of the process of working on a 3D laser where we'll be able to wrap around the whole thing, so I don't have to break it up into, most of these guns I'm going to break up into, 10 or more sections to get it to all look like it flows together, where hopefully with that technology and working with those guys, it'll be able to be something where you can do an actual wrapping the whole gun, how like I see it in my head, be able to get it down on the actual metal.
So everything is in pieces and you have to almost like CAD draw it out to make sure it all lines up.
Yeah, basically what I start with the outline of the gun, depending on what it is. I draw the outline of the perimeter for wherever I'm going to be engraving on it. Then I have that all laid out. Then I just start drawing on it just like, any artist would be drawing away at it something. And then once I get the layout how I want it to be, then you start with the trimming, because the lasers, if you're up or down a millimeter or two, it starts losing focus and doesn't really cut well. So you got to find like that happy sweet spot. So these things, they're never just a flat surface. It's rarely, you're working on just a Glock slide or something, So with that being said, you got to break up any individual, any drops, any different angles. You got to split that all up. So then it becomes kind of a process of piecing together like a puzzle to make it all flow, make sure your lines match up and that sort of thing. That's kind of where the years of messing stuff up comes in, and you're able to kind of navigate your way around some of the tighter spots.
What types of tools do you use to do this type of work? Are you using just like chisels and files, or are you using like finer, I guess finer when I say this, but like a Dremel, or is there like, what are you using?
So my type of engraving is actually, I use a fiber laser for it. I started way back. I mean, like I said, like 15 years ago, however long it was, when I started wanting engraving, because we originally were just using a CNC, and you could only get so much details with the CNC because at the end of the day, it's still, it's still a machine. You're still having to use a tooling to cut it out, so you're not able to work as tight as you are with, say, laser or with hand stuff. You're able to. There's some guys out there that are just absolute freaks when it comes to hand engraving, and it's not me, man. I tried a little bit of that, and I was like, all right, I can't get what's in my head down here on this piece of metal. So, but like I said, came from doing designing shirts and cars and that sort of thing. So I was more familiar with drawing online. So I used Corel Draw. That's the program I always have used, and use that to draw it all out. And then once that's done, then then you're able to break it up and start splitting there. But the mostly Corel Draw is what I'm familiar with. It might not be the best product that's out there for it, but it's what I've used for so long, so I'm comfortable with it. And then, like I said, a Trotec fiber laser. That for the most part is what does the actual engraving section of it.
What is the typical interaction like with your clients? Do you make pieces and say this is what's for sale, or do people come, or are people able to come up to you and say, hey, I want a skull here and I want like fog or whatever? Do they come up to you with ideas, or is it just you get what you get, so to speak?
There's such a wide range of customers. Every once in a while I'll have a piece that I'll have been wanting to build for quite some time, so I'll kind of fit it in between other customer jobs. So if you ever see one of my parts, one of my builds that's actually available for sale, pick it up, because it doesn't happen very often. I just don't have enough time to work my own personal ones in. But when it comes to customers, you have one guy that's just like, I completely trust you, do whatever you want. And I'm like, well, dude, I might think unicorns are cool and you don't.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit of something here to work with. And then there's other guys that give you sketches. I want this here and there. And then it's like, oh God. Most of the time, those are the pains where it's like, they don't understand that you're working with metal. This isn't a picture that you came up with online. Like, this is actually metal. It has to work. So those ones are a bit more difficult, but you're just able to, all right, give me the bullet points. What are your favorite parts about what you came up with? And that's kind of how I work best. I describe myself a lot as, a tattoo artist. Give them an idea. Give me some bullet points you want on there. Don't worry about how it's going to tie into the gun. Don't worry about how it's going to tie in. Just give me stuff that's important to you, and let me worry about how to make it all flow and make it work in the proper way to make it look good. And if the customers are cool with that, that's normally when the best way happens, But like I said, they're all over the place, So, I mean, every once in a while, one of mine will be available that's just happen to hit ready and it doesn't have a home yet. But most of my stuff is customers' builds.
Are there legal aspects to what you're doing? Like, do manufacturers ever go, you can't do that to my gun, or is there laws against what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, I'm on a first name basis with my local ATF agent out here. They actually were just at the shop not that long ago. I tell them all the time, I'm like, man, I'm going to ask you all kinds of illegal questions because I want to make sure what I'm doing, I'm okay to do it. And, his response was, man, the people that ask the questions, I don't worry about. It's the ones I never hear from that I wonder what they're doing. So I call them all the time. Like, one of the questions I had that kind of goes with your question there is, I forget the manufacturer, but they have their manufacturing info right in the middle of the magwell on the AR. I'm like, that's like prime real estate, but it has serial number and model numbers. You can't. So I called them up and said, hey, told them what was going on. I'm like, I'm a manufacturer. Am I able to remove that and then just relocate the same number and everything to a different spot? It's more handy for me to be able to work with, and I can machine that one down. And their answer was no. They said, you are a manufacturer, but you're not that manufacturer. And technically by law, when you remove that serial number, even though you're just putting it right back on, that's removing the serial number. That's illegal. So I'm like, okay, cool. Fair enough. That's all I need to know. So yeah, there are definitely some little fine points like that you got to make sure. Manufacturers, I haven't had too many manufacturers say, hey, you can't do this, can't do that. That are, at least firearm manufacturers. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, just if I have questions, if it's any questionable at all, I always just, call guys over the ATF and like, hey man, am I allowed to do this before anything? So.
Are there any emerging trends in customization that you're excited about, or that you see customization going?
I've haven't seen a whole lot of new yet that has really impressed me. Cerakote's doing some cool stuff where they're having guys where they're able to lay like a couple layers of Cerakote, and they use their laser to be able to just remove some like certain layers of it to make make the the artwork really pop out on Cerakote. To me, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of old school. I mean, as old school as a laser guy can be, where I'm like, it's cheating. Like that, to me, I like to be able to make it actually cut in the metal and then send it to, send it off to Coda to have them, coat the thing for me and really use someone's hand that's taking their artwork. Yes, you use laser to do it, but that's many, many hours that it took to get there. And then it takes my painter, again, hours and hours to be able to mask it all off, airbrush it, get this there to make it really pop out. So in some ways, it's a cool idea technology wise, but I'm kind of, like I said, I'm old school in that way where I'm like, it's cheating. So I'm waiting to see what Trotec comes up with for their 3D engraving. I think that would be really cool. I think that would kind of bring a new level to different aspects I've been wanting to do that I haven't been able to yet. So that could help for sure.
So you're thinking like, I mean, if you think of like AI art online, or you put in a prompt, the picture's cool, but you can tell like it's just not organic. So you feel like having that file, having whatever you're doing, that creates a little bit of humanity or character that you can't get with the laser.
Yeah, like I said, when we're talking AI, yeah, that's basically that's a good way of summing it up. That it's like they can come up with a completely amazing thing, and the stuff it's just fucking ridiculous they're doing already. It's just really amazing work. But for me, I look at myself as an artist, my pieces of artwork, and when it comes to that, I want an actual person's thoughts to be like, because I'm able to hear from a person if this is, why is this important to you? Like, just out of curiosity, what's important to you? Or I want flowers. What do you want that flower? What's the deal with that? So I'm able to get some of their stories behind what they're thinking and try really personalizing it. For example, I did a musician's 1911, and I knew she was a musician, so I'm like, just out of curiosity, what's the favorite song that you wrote? She's like, oh, da da da. Told me what song it was. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Good to know. So then, in hers, when I was doing the music notes, I took the hook that she sang on that, and that's what I used for the music notes. So when she looked at it, she's like, oh shit, that's the song that I wrote that I sang. So little touches like that AI might not think about. They're like, oh, music notes, okay, this is easy. They're a musician, I can come up with that. But it's not that human interaction that you have with the person to really be able to, make it something that they never want to get rid of.
How do you engage with the community or fellow artisans in the custom firearms and just customization in general?
As in, like, how do I?
Like, is it a community, or is it kind of like everybody is for themselves?
I think this firearm industry is kind of like any competitive industry. There's two groups of people. There's the guys that it's all mine, and there's guys that are like, oh, that's cool. I want to see what you do. And I've always been. I mean, I don't even know how many lasers I've sold for Trotec, because anytime someone asks me, hey, do you mind if I ask you? Of course, dude. I'm like, here's my rep's number. Tell me you want the Dark Alliance build. That's what you want, and they'll set you up with exactly what I have. So I want to see other people do cool shit. Like that motivates me. There's nothing where I ever see someone's artwork and be like, oh, that's fucking, like, no, dude, be pumped for that person. Like that should help inspire you. It shouldn't take you away from me, And then when you're in trouble and you need help, you got a lot more friends than you do enemies. It's a lot easier. Like, hey man, I'm running behind on this guy. You jump in. I send this to you. Can you not? Yeah, no problem. Done. That's a lot better than trying to scramble and figure out that you don't got no friends. So
You can attract more bees with honey than vinegar.
100%.